Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone out there on the internet, whether you're listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube. This is Lancing with myself, the 5 minute, actually more like 6 or 7, weekly internet show where I, Steve D from Tin Star Games, talk about being a freelance creative and game designer when you're low on spoons and low on cash. Today I want to talk about growing in your career. You know, we talk a lot about getting started, but guess what? Time will pass. And that can be a scary thing. Suddenly, you know, there are all sorts of ways that you can be afraid in this industry. You can be afraid when you're starting out and you're young and you're like, well, I only have, you know, when I first made my website, I had one game on it. It looked so sad and scary. It's like, how can I dare have a website when I only have one game? I was talking to a mentee last week, and he was like, I can't really put anything on my Kickstarter to convince anyone that I've made games because I've only been in the industry for a year and I've made like one game. And that's really scary and really intimidating. And but at the same time, when you get a little bit further into your career, 5 years, 10 years, you're going to be like, well, hang on a sec. I've been in the industry 10 years. Am I here? Have I published anything? Have I really made a mark? Am I really in the industry at 20 years or 30 years? You're going to keep questioning yourself because that's the nature of being an artist and the nature of imposter syndrome and all the kind of tricks that your brains play on you. And that can be exhausting. You go, look, I've been here this long. Do I actually know anything? Can I actually mentor someone? Can I pass on any advice? Have I learned something? Have I achieved something? Should I have achieved more? These are all important questions. And I think one of the first things you can do to deal with this is just to be aware of it. Like so many things I talk about, it's like being aware that this thing is coming and trying to have a plan for it, or at least some idea of how you're going to react to it, will just help you feel more in control. Right, this is going to happen. It happens to everyone. So let's think about how we address it. Something that I always like to think about is I saw a comedian once talking about the fact that the reason we have children is to make us feel accomplished. Because we get to our 20s and 30s and we go, well, I don't know how to do anything. I feel like, you know, I barely know how to pay the bills and run a house. And then you have a child and they don't know anything. They don't know how to speak. They don't know how to, you know, feed themselves. They come to you holding the soda can upside down, confused about why all the soda is running out and screaming and crying because they can't figure out to turn the soda can the other way up. You know, they don't know how to solve these basic problems. And you're like, oh, I know things. I know how to turn the soda can the right way up. I know how to turn a doorknob and open a door. And it's a silly kind of joke, but it actually fills you with a bit of confidence because there are things that you have worked out. There are things that you know and you can pass on. You can teach people really all these things that you never know that you actually do know, you know, that how to talk and think and say sentences and do basic math. And you can teach kids all the way, all these sort of things that you learnt at school that you now realize have value. You know, how to count and how to do sums and all these kind of things. And the same is true of being an artist. We often talk about that being the best way to the best person who can help you as an artist is the person just in front of you, and the person you can help most is the person just behind you. And that is certainly true. And that is a great way to sort of understand your process, to go, where am I? What do I know? What things am I asking questions about? When you start doing that, you can also think, well, what else can I pass back? What have I just learnt? What have I just figured out? And if you keep that kind of track of that sense of like, where am I going? Where am I learning today? As I keep saying, you have to keep learning new things. It's never going to end. You're never going to go, oh, I know everything about being a game designer and a game producer and a game polisher now. You're always going to be stepping forward. If you keep an idea on that, you can always be passing that information back. And that's the narrow version. The bigger version is that there will come a time, if you keep at it, which is what is really the key factor, if you keep at it, then you will look up one day and realize you've been here for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You'll realize that you have made some progress. You might not be where you hoped you would be in 20 years. You might not be up to those people you idolized 20 years ago, because guess what? They've been moving forward as well. They've been doing more stuff, and you thought they were a lot bigger than they were because you were like a little kid. You were looking up at the people who were only 5 or 10 years above you and thinking that they were giants. And now that it's 20 years later and they're still 5 or 10 years above you, you're like, well, hang on, I'm still haven't caught up, because you never will, like all age things. But you also might think you should be like they are now, which you can't be because you're still behind. You also might think I should be like they were what I thought they were 20 years ago. But you were a little kid then as an artist, so they seemed much larger, and they didn't know all the things you thought they knew. So when you get to these milestones, be aware that you're growing up as an artist, and think back to being a little kid and think about these kind of changes that happen, and they're going to happen to you just as they happened in life, just as you got to a point where you realized adults didn't know everything, or that you suddenly felt like you had control or didn't have control, or whatever stage of your life you hit. That's all going to happen to you as an artist. But you're also going to have these times where you can look back and people are going to be looking up at you, seeing you as a giant, and you can think about those things that you know. And that's sort of the wonderful thing about progressing as an artist, is that maybe you never feel like you catch up, but you can look back at the babies in the art form, and you know things. You really do know things. You might not always be able to access it or teach it, but you do, and that's the benefit of getting old as an artist. As you progress, you're going to feel out of touch, you're going to feel like you never achieved anything. As soon as you get to the point where you feel like you're vaguely successful, you're going to look at the younger people who seem to suddenly be a lot more talented than you could ever imagine, have a lot more support than you ever could, a lot more freedom, a lot more choices, and you're going to get angry about that, just like adults do about kids in non-artistic things. And as soon as that kicks in, you're going to be like, God, I feel like I barely achieved anything, and now the people younger than me are racing past me. But just like being an adult, being an artistic adult does have its benefits, and that is that benefit that you know how to turn that soda can around the right way up, and these people they don't know these things. And you can help, and you can be like a parent to younger artists. That's the one saving grace of getting to some sort of point in your career. I've been working in the industry for, depending on how you measure it, about 20 years, starting to feel like the young people are all racing past me. But by sitting down and mentoring, I can actually get a sense of, oh, look, I've actually conquered some things. I do know some things. I can help the little babies starting out. And that's the saving grace. And that gives me a sense of perspective and makes me think about, how far I've come and how to cope with the next 20 years as an artist. Think about where I might want to go. So, this is growing as an adult, growing as an artist, actually, is very much like growing as an adult. You're going to get a lot of the same kind of emotions. So what you've learned in life can apply to being an artist. And just think about that in terms of your artistic career. If you're only 1 year old, right? Just think of you like that 1 year old baby who can barely talk and feed himself. If you're only, if you're 20 years in the industry, then sure, you should be able to do certain things. You might be able to go out and get a car and get a job, but you're not going to know everything. And you're going to feel like, maybe you're an imposter, but you can at least babysit those little kids. It's not a perfect metaphor, but it helps, and it'll help you get some perspective and plan. And as I say, to be successful, you've got to be in for the long haul, you've got to be in for the marathon. So be prepared to age as an artist, and all the good things that come with that, and all the bad things. You're growing up all over again. Enjoy it. Enjoy even the bad things. That's my message for today. Don't be afraid of getting older as an artist. It's better than giving up. Till next time, I've been Steve D. This has been Lancing with myself. Be good, pat dogs, play games, have fun.